This video is going to concentrate on two-dimensional arrays. So we go inside the chapter 810 arrays pointers folder, and we're going to go to two-dimensional arrays. And we talked a little bit about this in class. Please read these sections in your textbook and take some notes on it. We will have some other videos as we move along. Please access the links to the YouTube videos page as well. The two-dimensional arrays, remember, have two brackets, and so the first one is going to indicate the row and the second is going to indicate the column. And arrays start with zero indexing, just like 2D arrays start with zero indexing, just like one-dimensional arrays do. So this particular array has 3 rows and 4 columns, and so the highest index for the column will be 3, the highest index for the row will be 2. More importantly, if we take a look at how do you actually process or start to work with a two-dimensional array, is that we need 2 constants, one for basically the number of rows and one for the number of columns. This particular program has used descriptive names for those constants, so it's easy to read, that I know that when I'm working with this array called sales, I'm going to access the data by divisions and by quarters, like quarters in a year, like quarter 1, quarter 2, etc. It uses a totaling variable that's assigned to 0. Some of you have had some errors where your data turned out to be kind of weird, and that's because you maybe did not initialize the data. C++ will assign your data garbage, so you must be sure to initialize data. When you're working with a two-dimensional array, you use a series of nested loops. The for loop is the most common. If you take a look at this one, we start at 0 indexing. The first loop up here is the row loops, and the second loop inside is the columns loop for this one. And then nested loops can also be used to total up all the sales for the divisions. So your outer loop controls the rows, your inner loop controls the columns. Another example of a two-dimensional array right here, and this one has 2 constants again, one for the number of rows, one for the number of columns. And then it assigns the values with an initialization list. So if you take a look, there's 2 curly braces here at the beginning, and then each row is inside a curly brace. So every one of these individual curly braces with commas is a row, and then there's double curly braces at the end to indicate that it's a two-dimensional array. So this number 2 here at the beginning will have an index of 0, 0. The one on the very bottom right is going to have an index of 4, 4. So when you're working with arrays, you'll have a row loop on the outside generally and a column loop on the inside. That's pretty typical, and that's because you're processing every row by every column, meaning you're going to start with row 0 and then go column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So you're processing row by column, and that's how the brackets are in row by column. It is possible to have more than a two-dimensional array. You could have technically an infinite number of dimensions if you wanted to try to process them. There is an example in our textbook that I might show you that has a 3-dimensional array that is pretty straightforward. Most of the time you won't go beyond a 3-dimensional array. It's often used with graphics because graphics have X, Y, and Z coordinates. All right. And besides that, we often use classes instead of arrays to start to organize things. You are going to have a 2D array assignment, and I will come back to that after we do some example code.